You know what nobody tells you about a blackout? It's not the darkness that gets you. It's the Tuesday morning when you realize your phone's been dead for 36 hours and you have no idea if your kid's school is even open. It's standing in your kitchen at 2 a.m., listening to your neighbor's generator hum while yours ran out of gas yesterday, knowing the gas stations can't pump fuel without electricity. That's when you understand that all your emergency plans, all those apps on your dead phone, all that digital preparedness, means absolutely nothing when the grid goes down and the trucks stop rolling. I've been preparing for grid failures since 2018, and let me tell you something that took me years to figure out. The stuff that actually saves you in a blackout, it's not the expensive solar generators or the fancy freeze-dried meal kits everyone talks about. It's the simple $5 items sitting in your junk drawer right now that most people throw away without thinking twice. Here's what's really happening right now. The Department of Energy just released a report in July 2025 warning that blackout risks could increase 30-fold by 2030. Think about that number, not 30%. 30 times more likely. And this isn't some distant future problem. Spain and Portugal just experienced an entire day without power in April 2025. 60 million people, no electricity, no ATMs, no traffic lights, no cell service. And guess what? It wasn't a cyber attack. It wasn't terrorism. It was grid overload caused by renewable energy instability, modern infrastructure failing under normal operating conditions. That's the world we're living in now. And it's not just blackouts we need to worry about. Supply chains are actively cracking as we speak. Egg shortages hitting stores across America. Medical device shortages forcing hospitals to ration equipment. The USDA literally had to activate emergency food networks in 2025 because warehouse disruptions left thousands of people without food deliveries for weeks. This isn't prepper paranoia or conspiracy theory stuff. This is what's happening right now, today, in one of the wealthiest countries on Earth. So today, I'm sharing 15 items that cost less than your morning coffee run, but become absolutely priceless when the lights go out and deliveries stop. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff everyone mentions. Not flashlights and batteries. Everyone knows about those. I'm talking about the items that solve problems most people don't even realize exist until they're standing in the dark, hungry, and desperate, watching their neighbors figure it out the hard way. I've personally tested every single one of these through power outages, winter storms, and multi-day blackout simulations. This is the real deal, the stuff that actually works when everything else fails. Number 1, a hand crank flashlight and radio combo. And here's why this is absolutely critical. In the first 30 minutes of a major blackout, everyone's phone dies. Not immediately, but that battery you thought had 60% left, it's gone in half an hour when you're frantically trying to call family, check news apps, and figure out what's happening. I learned this during a winter storm in 2019. Power went out at 6 p.m. By 7:30, my phone was dead. My wife's phone? Dead. We had flashlights, sure, but we had no idea what was happening. Was it just our neighborhood? The whole city? How long would it last? Should we evacuate? That feeling of being completely cut off from information is absolutely terrifying. A hand crank radio solves this completely. No batteries required ever. You crank it for 60 seconds, you get 30 minutes of light and radio. Emergency broadcasts keep running even when everything else fails. You'll know what's happening, where help is, what areas to avoid. That information is survival, but here's what makes these even more valuable. Most of them have USB charging ports. You can charge your phone enough to make emergency calls. Not enough to scroll social media, but enough to reach family or call 911. That capability alone makes this worth 10 times its cost. My setup? I keep one in my bedroom, one in my car, and one in my emergency kit. They cost about $25 each. I test them quarterly just to make sure the mechanisms still work smoothly. After 6 years, all 3 still work perfectly. Number 2, a manual can opener. And I know what you're thinking. Really? A can opener? That's so basic. But here's the thing. Most people have electric can openers now, or those little battery-powered ones. Your emergency food stockpile is probably 90% canned goods. Beans, soup, vegetables, tuna, chili, All of it completely useless if you can't open the cans. Let me tell you about my neighbor during Hurricane Katrina aftermath. Guy had a garage full of canned food, hundreds of dollars worth. His electric can opener obviously didn't work without power. He tried using a knife to stab open a can of beans. Cut his hand badly. Needed stitches. In the middle of a disaster, he turned a food surplus into a medical emergency, all because he didn't have a $3 manual can opener. I keep 3 manual can openers, one in my kitchen drawer, one in my bug-out bag, and one in my camping supplies. The military-style P38 can openers are incredibly durable. They're tiny, they never break, and they work on any can size. I also have a larger swing-away style opener for everyday use. Both types cost less than $5. Test your can opener right now. Seriously, go try to open a can with it. I've bought can openers that looked fine, but had dull blades that couldn't cut properly. You want to discover that now? Not when you're hungry and stressed in a blackout. Number 3, 5-gallon water jugs already filled. Not empty ones you plan to fill later, already full. And here's why this matters more than people realize. When the power goes out, water stops flowing within 24 hours. Municipal water systems use electric pumps. No electricity, no water pressure. Your taps go dry. Most people think, okay, I'll just fill my bathtub when the power goes out. But if it's a sudden blackout, you might be at work. Your kids might be at school, your house might be locked up. By the time you get home, the water pressure is already gone. You get maybe one toilet flush and a few cups of water from the pipes. That's it. Having water already stored means you're immediately prepared. No scrambling, no panic. The standard recommendation is 1 gallon per person per day minimum. So a family of 4 needs at least 12 gallons for a 3-day emergency. I keep 30 gallons stored because I learned the hard way that you need water for way more than just drinking. You need water for cooking, for washing dishes, for basic hygiene, for flushing toilets, for cleaning wounds, for giving to pets. Water gets used up incredibly fast. During a week-long power outage in 2021, my family of 3 went through almost 40 gallons of water. And we were being careful. Storage tip. Keep water jugs in a cool, dark place. Rotate them every 6 months. I mark mine with a date using a permanent marker. When it's time to rotate, I use the old water for plants and refill the jugs with fresh water. Takes maybe 20 minutes twice a year. Small effort, massive payoff. Number 4, cash in small bills. And I'm not talking about a couple of 20s. I'm talking about at least $500 in 1s, 5s, and 10s. Here's what happens immediately when the power goes out. ATMs stop working. Card readers die. Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, all completely useless. Cash becomes the only currency that functions. During the Spain and Portugal blackout in April, people couldn't buy anything for an entire day. Stores that tried to stay open couldn't process payments. Even if they wanted to sell you water or food, there was no way to complete the transaction. The few places that took cash ran out of change within an hour. Small bills are critical. If you have a $100 bill and you're trying to buy a $3 bottle of water, the seller has no way to make change. You either overpay dramatically or you don't get the water. But if you have 1s and 5s, you can make exact change. You can buy small amounts as needed. You can trade more easily. I keep $200 in my wallet at all times during normal life, just mixed in with my regular cash. Another $300 is hidden in my house in 3 separate locations. Not in a safe. If there's a fire or I need to evacuate quickly, I don't have time to open a safe. I keep it in waterproof bags taped inside furniture, behind picture frames, places like that. Here's the thing about cash. It's useful in literally every emergency scenario. Blackout, natural disaster, civil unrest, banking system failure. Cash works when nothing else does. It's the ultimate backup payment system. Number 5. A portable propane camping stove. Because here's what nobody thinks about until day 3 of a blackout. You can't eat cold soup from a can for 2 weeks straight. You need hot food, hot coffee, the ability to boil water for purification. Warm meals aren't just about comfort, they're about maintaining your body temperature and keeping your immune system functioning. I use a 2-burner Coleman propane stove. Costs about $50. Each small propane canister gives you about 2 hours of cooking time. I keep 20 canisters stored in my garage. That's 40 hours of cooking capability. For perspective, you can make 3 full meals in less than an hour of cook time. So that's enough fuel for 120 meals. But here's the critical safety warning. Never, ever use a propane stove indoors without proper ventilation. During the Spain blackout, 6 people died from carbon monoxide poisoning because they ran generators or propane equipment inside their homes trying to stay warm. Carbon monoxide is completely odorless. You don't smell it, you don't taste it. You just get sleepy and never wake up. I only use my propane stove outdoors or in my garage with the door fully open. Even in winter, even in rain, it's worth the discomfort to stay safe. You can set up a tarp or work under an overhang, but never in a fully enclosed space. The hidden value of a propane stove is water purification. Boiling water for 1 minute kills virtually all pathogens. If your water supply becomes questionable, if you're using water from a stream or a questionable source, boiling it makes it safe to drink. That capability could literally save your life. Number 6, a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector. And this goes right along with what I just mentioned. When the power goes out, people get desperate. They bring generators indoors. They use propane heaters in bedrooms. They burn charcoal in their living rooms trying to stay warm. And carbon monoxide kills them silently while they sleep. Your regular CO detector probably plugs into the wall or has a battery backup that relies on AC power to function. When the electricity goes out, it stops working. A battery-powered detector keeps functioning no matter what. It's independent of the grid. I keep 2 battery-powered CO detectors, one near my sleeping area, one in my garage where I might use emergency equipment. They cost about $25 each. I replace the batteries every 6 months on a schedule. Same day I rotate my water supply. I test them monthly just by pressing the test button. This is one of those items where the value isn't obvious until you understand the statistics. During major disasters, more people die from carbon monoxide poisoning than from almost any other preventable cause. It's completely avoidable with a $25 detector. By the way, I know this is a lot of information coming at you fast. If you're feeling overwhelmed trying to figure out what to prep first, I put together a free emergency checklist that ranks these 15 items by priority, plus shows you exactly where to buy them for the best prices. It also includes 27 items most people never think about until it's too late. There's even a section on what to do in the first hour of a blackout versus the first day versus the first week. The link's in the description below and in the pinned comment. Grab it now while you're thinking about it, because this is exactly the kind of practical guide that turns panic into preparedness. Number 7, paper maps of your local area and your region. I can already hear people laughing at this one. Maps? Come on, we have GPS. But here's the reality. When your phone dies, GPS dies with it. When you need to evacuate or find an alternate route, you've got nothing. I learned this during a wildfire evacuation in 2020. Main highway was closed. GPS on my phone was showing routes that were already blocked. My phone was at 8% battery because I'd been using it all day tracking the fire. I was sitting in my car with my family, trying to figure out which back roads to take, and I had no map. We got out safely, but I had to follow other cars and guess. That's not a situation I ever want to be in again. Now I keep laminated paper maps in my car, in my house, and in my bug-out bag. State map, county map, and city map. They cost maybe $15 total. The hidden value of paper maps is planning. When things are calm, before the emergency, you can mark alternate routes, circle hospitals, police stations, friends' houses, places with resources. Draw out your evacuation routes with a marker. When chaos hits, you don't have to think. You just follow the plan you already marked. I've also marked water sources on my maps. Streams, lakes, public fountains. If water becomes scarce, I know exactly where to find it. Same with potential shelter locations, community centers, schools, all marked clearly so anyone in my family can read the map and navigate if needed. Number 8, a manual coffee grinder and stored coffee beans. And yes, I'm serious about this one. Here's what people don't understand about long-term emergencies. Morale matters. Mental state matters. The ability to have one normal, comforting thing in your day makes an enormous difference in your ability to cope with everything else. Coffee isn't just about caffeine, it's about ritual. It's about that 5-minute break where you feel human again. During a 2-week power outage, after an ice storm, having hot coffee every morning kept my family's spirits up. It gave us something to look forward to. It made the whole situation feel less apocalyptic and more manageable. But here's why you need whole beans and a manual grinder instead of pre-ground coffee. Ground coffee goes stale in weeks. Whole beans stay fresh for months, even years if stored properly. A manual grinder means you can make fresh coffee even without electricity. No batteries, no power needed. Just turn the handle and you've got fresh ground coffee. I keep 5 pounds of whole beans vacuum sealed in my pantry. The manual grinder costs $30. Takes about 3 minutes to grind enough for a pot of coffee. In a long-term blackout, coffee becomes an incredibly valuable trade item. People get desperate for it. I've seen reports from disaster zones where people traded luxury items for a single cup of coffee. Number 9, a wind-up alarm clock. Not a battery-powered one. A fully mechanical wind-up clock. And here's why this matters more than you'd think. In a blackout, time disappears. You wake up and you have no idea if it's 6 a.m. or 10 a.m. Your sleep schedule falls apart. Your meal schedule gets chaotic. Without structure, people start to panic. A working clock maintains routine. It lets you coordinate with neighbors. It helps you ration your resources properly. If you know you need to make your food last 7 days, you need to know exactly when those 7 days started and how much time has passed. I keep a wind-up alarm clock next to my bed. Costs about $20. I wind it once a week as part of my Sunday routine. It's loud enough to actually wake you up, unlike those gentle phone alarms we've all gotten used to. During a blackout, you might need to wake up at a specific time to check on something, to meet someone, to take a watch shift if you're worried about security. The psychological value of maintaining a schedule cannot be overstated. When everything feels out of control, having a clock that works, having a routine you can follow, gives you back some sense of control. That feeling matters enormously for mental health in crisis situations. Number 10, a clothesline and wooden clothespins. Because here's what happens after 3 or 4 days without power. Your clothes are dirty, your towels are dirty, your kids' clothes are dirty, and you have no way to wash or dry anything. Laundromats aren't working. Your washer and dryer obviously don't work. Personal hygiene starts breaking down. You can hand wash clothes with stored water and some basic soap. That's not too difficult. But then what? You've got soaking wet clothes and no way to dry them. If you just lay them out, they'll take days to dry and might start mildewing. That causes skin problems, infections, terrible odors. A clothesline solves this completely. String it up outside or even inside across a room. Hang your wet clothes with pins. They dry in hours instead of days. Fresh, clean clothes without any electricity. This was standard practice for most of human history. It still works perfectly. I have 100 feet of cord and 50 wooden clothespins stored in a bag. Total cost, maybe $15. I've rigged a permanent setup in my backyard between 2 trees. Takes 5 minutes to hang a full load of laundry. In winter or rain, I have an indoor setup in my garage where I can string the line along the walls. Clean clothes prevent rashes, infections, and disease. They maintain morale. They keep you healthier. When you feel clean, you function better mentally and physically. Don't underestimate how important this becomes after a week without power. Number 11, a headlamp instead of a handheld flashlight. This one sounds like a small difference, but it's actually huge. When you're holding a flashlight, you only have one hand free. Try cooking with one hand. Try doing repairs with one hand. Try carrying things with one hand while holding a light. It's incredibly frustrating and inefficient. A headlamp keeps both hands completely free. Whatever you're looking at is automatically lit up. You can cook, fix things, carry supplies, help injured people, all while having perfect light exactly where you need it. Once you've used a headlamp in a blackout, you'll never go back to regular flashlights. I keep 3 headlamps, one for me, one for my wife, one extra. They cost about $20 each for decent quality ones. I buy ones that have red light mode because red light preserves your night vision. If you're using white light at night and you suddenly need to see something in the dark without light, you're temporarily blind. Red light lets you see what you need without destroying your natural night vision. Battery life is important. My headlamps run for about 20 hours on a set of AAA batteries. I keep a stockpile of batteries specifically for these. 3 headlamps with backup batteries means my family has light for weeks if needed. The tactical advantage of headlamps is something nobody talks about. If there's civil unrest or security concerns during a prolonged blackout, having hands-free light means you can do whatever you need to do to protect yourself or your property while still being able to see clearly. I'm not trying to fear-monger here, but security becomes a real consideration in extended disasters. Number 12, duct tape and plastic sheeting. Because here's what happens in a winter blackout. Your window breaks from ice or storm damage. Suddenly, you've got freezing wind pouring into your house. No way to replace the window. No glass shops open. No repair services available. That broken window can drop your indoor temperature by 30 degrees in an hour. Duct tape and plastic sheeting creates an emergency seal. You tape the plastic over the broken window. It's not perfect, but it stops the wind. It keeps some heat in. It can make the difference between staying in your home or having to evacuate into worse conditions outside. But the applications go way beyond broken windows. Duct tape can temporarily fix leaking pipes, seal containers, repair torn tarps, create emergency bandages, mark trails or territory, bundle supplies, fix broken tools, patch clothing, waterproof connections. Plastic sheeting can create emergency shelters, protect supplies from rain, collect rainwater, create privacy barriers, cover floors during medical emergencies. I keep 2 full rolls of heavy-duty duct tape and a 100 square foot roll of 6mm plastic sheeting. Costs about $40 total. I store it in a waterproof container so it's protected from moisture. Duct tape can dry out and lose stickiness if it gets too hot or too cold, so I keep mine in a climate-controlled area. During Hurricane Harvey, I watched neighbors use plastic sheeting to create water barriers when flooding threatened their homes. They built plastic walls inside their houses to contain water to certain rooms. It actually worked. Their furniture and important items stayed dry while water flowed through the lower level. That's creative problem solving using simple materials. Number 13, a manual food mill or grain grinder. This one's for longer-term scenarios. If a blackout extends into weeks, or if supply chains stay disrupted for months, your stockpile of flour and processed foods will eventually run out. But whole grains, wheat berries, corn, rice, those can be stored for years, even decades if done properly. A manual grain grinder lets you turn whole grains into flour. You can make bread, tortillas, pasta, all from scratch with no electricity. Your food storage capacity just multiplied by 10 because whole grains store better and longer than any processed food. I have a hand-crank grain mill that cost about $150. It's one of my more expensive prep items, but it's worth every penny. I store 50 pounds of wheat berries in sealed buckets with oxygen absorbers. Those wheat berries will stay good for 20 years or more. When I need flour, I grind it fresh. It takes maybe 10 minutes of cranking to make enough flour for a loaf of bread. The hidden value here is nutrition. Fresh ground flour contains all the nutrients from the whole grain. Store-bought flour has much of that removed. In a long-term scenario where you're relying on stored food, those nutrients matter. They keep you healthier, stronger, more resistant to disease. This also becomes a valuable skill for bartering. If you can grind grain for neighbors, you can trade that service for other supplies or help. Skills are always more valuable than stuff in a prolonged crisis. Number 14, board games and playing cards. And before you skip this one thinking it's not important, let me explain something about disaster psychology. After about 3 days without power, boredom becomes a serious problem. Kids start going stir-crazy. Adults get depressed. Anxiety builds. Arguments start over nothing. Entertainment isn't frivolous in an emergency. It's essential for mental health. Board games and card games give people something to do. They create social interaction. They make time pass. They reduce stress. One good board game can keep a family occupied for hours without requiring any electricity or batteries. I keep a dozen different board games and several decks of cards in my emergency supplies. Strategy games, word games, quick games, long games, different options for different moods and different age ranges. Total investment may be $100, but the value in maintaining family cohesion during a crisis is enormous. During the Texas freeze in 2021, families that had entertainment options fared much better mentally than those who just sat around worrying. Kids who had something to focus on weren't as scared. Adults who could play a game and laugh for an hour felt more hopeful about the situation. This also builds community. If you invite neighbors over to play games, you're creating social bonds. You're building the kind of relationships that lead to people helping each other, sharing resources, watching out for each other. That community resilience is often the difference between communities that recover quickly and those that fall apart. Number 15, pens, paper, and notebooks. Because here's what you can't do in a blackout. You can't text, you can't email, you can't type notes on your phone, you can't access your digital calendar or your shopping list or your emergency contact list. All that information locked on dead devices. Physical writing materials solve this completely. You can leave notes for family members. You can write down important information. You can keep track of your supply inventory. You can document medical information. You can create barter lists. You can record what's happening for future reference. I keep multiple notebooks and a box of pens in several locations. One set in my kitchen, one in my emergency kit, one in my car. Basic composition notebooks cost $1 each. A box of pens costs $5. This is the cheapest prep on this entire list, and it's incredibly useful. The hidden value is communication. If you need to tell your neighbor something but they're not home, you can write a note and leave it at their door. If you're coordinating with a group of people and cell service is down, you can pass written messages. It sounds primitive, but it works. I also keep a printed copy of my emergency contact list. Phone numbers and addresses for family, friends, doctors, veterinarians, insurance companies, utilities, all printed on waterproof paper and stored in a plastic sleeve. If my phone dies, I still have all that information. During a 5-day blackout in 2019, I kept a daily journal of what was happening, what we ate, how much water we used, what problems came up, what solutions worked. That journal became invaluable for improving my preparations. I could look back and see exactly what we needed more of and what we barely used. All right, listen. We just covered 15 items that most people wouldn't think about until they're sitting in the dark, cold, and scared. But here's the truth about blackouts and supply chain failures. They're not about having the most expensive gear or the biggest stockpile. They're about understanding what actually keeps people alive and functioning when modern convenience disappears. That hand crank radio that costs $25 today could be the difference between knowing what's happening and sitting in terrified ignorance for days. That manual opener you can buy for $3 means your family eats when everyone else's electric gadgets are useless paperweights. That clothesline and some pins means you stay clean and healthy while others are dealing with infections from dirty clothes. I've been doing this since 2018, and the biggest lesson I've learned is this: preparation beats panic every single time. The people who survive and even thrive when infrastructure fails aren't the richest or the strongest. They're the ones who saw the warning signs and quietly prepared with practical items that actually matter. Every single item on this list costs less than a tank of gas. You could buy all 15 for less than most people spend on a weekend out. But when the lights go out and stay out, when deliveries stop coming and stores close down, these items become absolutely priceless. Not because they're rare or exotic, but because they solve the real problems that emerge when modern life stops working. Here's what I want you to do. Don't try to buy everything at once and overwhelm yourself. Start with 3 items from this list, the ones that made the most sense for your specific situation. Buy them this week, learn how to use them, test them, make sure they work, and then expand from there. Preparation is a marathon, not a sprint. Small, consistent steps beat dramatic gestures every single time. If you haven't grabbed that free emergency checklist yet, seriously get it now. Links in the description below and in the pinned comment. It's got everything we talked about today, ranked by priority, plus exact shopping links so you don't waste time searching. And it includes those 27 additional items that people forget about until it's too late. Things like prescription medication considerations, pet supplies, infant needs, items for elderly family members. It's completely free because I remember what it was like to want to prepare, but feel completely lost about where to start. Remember, the goal isn't to live in fear. The goal is to live without fear because you're prepared. When you've got solutions to the problems that stop everyone else cold, you sleep better at night. You stress less about news headlines. You know that whatever happens, you can handle it. The world's getting more fragile, not more stable. Power grids are aging and overloaded. Supply chains are more brittle than ever. Climate extremes are getting worse. Having these simple items isn't paranoid. It's prudent. It's the same reason you have insurance or wear a seatbelt or keep a first aid kit in your car. You hope you never need them, but if you do, you'll be incredibly grateful they're there. If this information changed how you think about preparedness, hit that subscribe button right now. I'm constantly sharing practical, tested preparation advice, not fantasy apocalypse scenarios or fear-mongering. Real preparation for real situations that actually happen. Drop a comment below telling me which item surprised you most, or if there's something I missed that you think should be on this list. I read every comment and your questions help me know what to cover next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe they've been thinking about getting prepared but didn't know where to start. Maybe they're overwhelmed by all the complex, expensive prepping content out there. This list proves that real preparation is accessible to everyone. You don't need a fortune. You don't need a bunker. You don't need to be a survival expert. You just need to think ahead, stock up on the right items, and know how to use them. When everyone else is scrambling for solutions, you'll already have them. That's not just survival. That's thriving when others are barely hanging on. Stay prepared, stay practical, and remember, the best time to prepare was yesterday. The second best time is right now. I'll see you in the next one.